Vivienne Caldwell had never stepped foot in a place where sweat glistened under cheap neon lights. Yet here, she stood at the entrance of Fuego Nights, a salsa club tucked into Miami's Little Havana, fulfilling a dare her college roommate had thrown at her 3 margarita. Billionaire heiress, 26. Controller of a real estate empire her grandfather built from Georgia clay, and absolutely, devastatingly bored with the men who circled her like moths did flame. The bass thumped through her Louboutins as she navigated past bodies moving in rhythms her country club upbringing never taught. Couples twisted and dipped, their chemistry electric, their bodies speaking languages she'd never learned. "You lost, Princessa?" A bartender with tattooed forearms grinned at her designer dress. "Observing," Vivienne replied coolly, sliding onto a bar stool. "Whiskey neat." Her best friend, Harper Ellison, appeared beside her, blonde hair already frizzing from the humidity. "Viv, this is incredible. Real people doing real things. Real people with real rhythm," Vivienne muttered, watching a couple execute a spin that defied physics. That's when she saw him. He moved through the crowd like water finding its path, effortless, inevitable, tall, dark skin gleaming on rotating light. His white linen shirt unbuttoned just enough to suggest the sculpt. His partner, an older Cuban woman, laughed as he guided her intricate footwork. Respectful. "That's Zion Mercer," catching her. "Best instructor in Miami. Teaches private lesson." Vivienne, his partner, a perfect, something unfamiliar. Not attraction, hunger. Zion, his partner's, sending her back to. Then his eyes, he approached with, "Your thoughts?" "Yes, every single comment. And it really keeps us motivated. Let's aim for 50 comments on this video. Think we can hit it? Your support means the world, so don't forget to comment, share, and keep the energy flowing." Vivienne had refused his hand that night. She'd finished her whiskey, collected Harper, and retreated to her penthouse in Brickell, where the air smelled of orchids and wealth. But something about Zion Mercer's knowing smile had burrowed under her skin like a splinter she couldn't reach. 3 days later, she sat across from her mother, Cordelia Caldwell, at their family's Coral Gables estate. Breakfast on the terrace meant bone china, fresh orchids, and conversations that circled like sharks. "The Hardington boy asked about you again at the gala," Cordelia said, spreading preserves on toast with surgical precision. "Princeton educated. His family's shipping empire practically runs the eastern seaboard." "Bradley Hardington has the personality of wet cardboard," Vivienne replied, pushing eggs around her plate. "Personality is negotiable. Bloodlines are not." Vivienne thought about Zion's hand, how they'd guided his dance partner with such effortless authority, how he'd looked at her like he could see past the designer armor, straight to the lonely, rattling around inside. "I've been thinking about taking dance lessons," she said casually. Cordelia's fork paused. "Dance lessons? Whatever. You had the finest instructors. Salsa, Latin." Her mother's laugh was crystal. "Darling, that was 8 years, trained in Cuba and New York. Dance is the conversation your soul wants to have." Pretentious, she thought. Then why was she already checking his private lesson availability? Vivienne Caldwell did not make appointments. She arrived. Saturday afternoon, she walked into Fuego Nights while the cleaning crew mopped floors and a maintenance man tested speakers. The place looked different in daylight. Smaller, shabbier. The neon signs that had seemed romantic at night now just looked cheap. Zion was in the back studio, visible through a glass partition. He was teaching a teenage girl with braids and fierce concentration, counting out steps while she stumbled and tried again. Vivienne waited. She was good at waiting. 20 minutes later, the girl emerged, sweaty and beaming. She froze when she saw Vivienne. "You okay, Destiny?" Zion appeared behind his student, eyes flicking to Vivienne with immediate recognition. "There's a fancy lady," Destiny whispered loudly. "I see that. Head home. Tell your mama I'll bring those groceries by tomorrow." After the girl left, Zion crossed his arms. "Studios closed for drop-ins. Schedules online." "I don't do online scheduling," Vivienne said. "I came to book private lessons. Whatever your highest rate is, double it. I want Sunday night, exclusively." Something flickered across his face, annoyance or amusement. I don't teach on Sundays. Everyone has a price. Zion walked toward her slowly, stopping close enough that she could smell sandalwood and clean sweat. See, that's where people like you get confused. You think currency is the only kind of value. He gestured around the modest studio. I built this from nothing, taught myself while working 2 jobs. Sunday is mine, for family, for church, for being a person instead of a service. Vivienne felt heat rise to her cheeks. I wasn't trying to... Yeah, you were. His voice wasn't angry, just tired. You walked in here and saw peeling paint and assumed everyone's waiting for someone with a checkbook to make their dreams come true. That's not fair. Fair is a concept rich people invented to feel better about the game being. He walked back toward the studio. I've got a Tuesday slot open. Beginner group class. $50, same as everyone else pays. I don't take group classes. Zion shrugged. Then I guess you don't take classes. Vivienne stood in the empty club, humiliation and fury warring in her chest. No one dismissed her. No one. She could buy this building. She could buy this entire block. But she couldn't buy what she'd seen in his eyes. That complete, comfortable immunity to everything she represented. She walked out into the Miami sun, already composing the scathing Yelp review in her head. Then she stopped on the sidewalk, catching her reflection in a car window. Who was she really angry at? Tuesday night. Vivienne Caldwell stood in the back row of the beginner group class, wearing yoga pants that cost more than most people's rent and feeling like a fraud in every possible direction. 12 other students filled the studio, a middle-aged Korean couple, 2 college girls taking a break from studying, a nervous accountant named Dennis, who kept apologizing for his sweaty palms, and an elderly Cuban man named Roberto, who was apparently there to remember his youth. Zion taught with patient authority, breaking down the basic step until even Dennis could stumble through it. He gave corrections without condescension, adjustments without judgment. Lead with your heart, not your feet, he told the class. Your partner should feel invited, not dragged. When he rotated through to Vivienne, his professional mask didn't slip. Arms up. Frame matters. I know what a frame is, then use one. He adjusted her elbow with clinical precision. You're holding tension like you're expecting an attack. This is a dance, not a hostile takeover. Maybe I'm expecting an attack because you've been hostile since I walked in. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise that she'd pushed back. Fair point. He paused. But you came in throwing money around like that's what opens doors here. That's not hostility I showed you. That's honesty. Is there a difference? Big one. He guided her through a basic turn, his hand warm and steady on her waist. Hostility wants to hurt. Honesty wants to help. Most people can't tell because they're not used to truth that isn't gift. Vivienne felt something crack, a small fissure in the wall she'd spent 26 years constructing. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, she said quietly. I just don't know any other language. Zion studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded, something softening in his jaw. That's the most honest thing you've said since you... The song changed. He demonstrated the next combination, and Vivienne found herself actually trying, not to impress, but to learn. When she stumbled, Roberto caught her elbow and winked. Don't worry, it took me 40 years to learn to... My wife, Magdalene. By the end of class, Vivienne was sweat-soaked and exhausted, in a way no Pilates session had ever achieved. The other students filtered out, chatting easily with Zion about their weeks, their families, their small victory. She lingered at the door. Same time Thursday? Zion asked, not looking up from his phone. Maybe. That pride of yours is heavy. Might move better if you set it down. Vivienne walked into the humid Miami night, her mother's voice echoing in her head. Those environments attract a certain element. She thought about Roberto's gentle catch, Dennis's relieved laughter when he finally completed a turn, the college girls cheering each other on. Maybe her mother had never actually met any elements at all. 3 weeks into classes, Vivienne couldn't stop thinking about the way Zion looked when he danced. Not performing, just moving through the world like his body understood something her mind kept blocking. She was in her corner office at Caldwell Properties, staring at acquisition reports without seeing them, when her brother Preston appeared in the doorway. 32, Yale Law, their father's face with their mother's ambition. "You missed the charity board meeting," he said. "Mother's furious." "I had a conflict." "You had a dance class." He settled into the chair across from her, amusement curdling into something sharper. "People talk, Vivienne. Harrison's wife saw you leaving some club in Little Havana looking like you'd run a marathon." "Since when is exercise scandalous?" "Since it's happening in neighborhoods where our properties are worth more demolished than occupied." Preston leaned forward. "What's really going on? Having some kind of crisis? Quarter-life thing?" Vivienne thought about Thursday's class. How Zion had finally complimented her frame. How that single nod of approval had felt more earned than any accolade she'd received at galas. "I'm learning something new." "That's allowed." "Learning what? How the other half lives?" Preston laughed. "We already know. That's why we employ them." The words hit different now. She'd said similar things herself, once. Probably worse. "The instructor," she said slowly. "He built his studio from nothing, taught himself while working 2 jobs. Inspiring. Put him in a commercial for Bootstrap Mythology." Preston stood. "Look, do your little adventure. Just be discreet. And for God's sake, don't let Mother find out you're taking group classes like some common person." After he left, Vivienne pulled up her phone. She'd been Googling Zion Mercer more than she'd admit. Found an interview from 3 years ago in a local magazine. "Growing up in Liberty City, I watched people with nothing find joy on dance floor while people with everything sat in mansions. Salsa taught me that wealth isn't what you accumulate, it's what you create between souls." She'd dismissed it as pretentious philosophy before. Now she read it again. Her phone buzzed. "Harper, drinks tonight? Need to debrief on your Latin lover situation. He's not my anything. He barely tolerates me." That's foreplay for emotionally unavailable rich girl. Vivienne laughed despite herself, then stopped. Was this what she'd become? Someone who needed permission to enjoy something? Who filtered every experience through her family's expectation? She'd been taught that people like Zion wanted something from people like her. Money, access, legitimacy. But in 3 weeks, he'd never asked for anything except that she show up ready to learn. That was more than most people in her life had ever required. "Hello, the Shade of Love family. So happy you're here." Before we jump into the next part of the story, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the II comments. Also, how's the story been so far? We love reading your thoughts. Yes, every single comment. And it really keeps us motivated. Let's aim for 50 comments on this video. Think we can hit it? Your support means the world, so don't forget to comment, share, and keep the energy flowing. Vivienne arrived early for Thursday's class. A first. The studio was quiet except for voices from the back office. "Mr. Z, please." A woman's voice, thick with tears. "If we lose this space, where will the kids go?" "Carmen, breathe." Zion's voice was steady, warm. "The lease renewal isn't until September. I've got some savings. We're not closing." "Savings? You use that for Destiny's school supplies and Marcus's medical bills. I keep the books, remember? You haven't paid yourself in 3 months. Vivienne pressed against the wall, out of sight. "The community needs this place," Zion said. "Half these kids have nowhere to go after school." Roberto and Magdalena met their grandkids' spouses here. Dennis found enough confidence to finally ask his crush to coffee. Numbers on a spreadsheet don't measure that. Numbers pay rent. Then we'll find more numbers. Fundraiser, maybe corporate sponsorship. Something. From who? The fancy lady who throws money around? You sent her packing. Silence. Then, that was different. How? Because she didn't see the work. She just saw something to acquire. Like we're items on a shelf. Vivienne's chest tightened. "Maybe," Carmen said gently. She just didn't know how to see. Not everyone grew up learning to look past surfaces. The conversation drifted to logistics, vendor payments, equipment repairs, the scholarship fund for students who couldn't afford classes. Vivienne listened to Zion problem solve, never once suggesting he deserved compensation for his endless giving. Later, during class, she watched him differently. The way he knelt to tie Roberto's shoelace without being asked. How he remembered that one of the college girls, Mia, had an exam tomorrow and kept the class short so she could study. How he noticed Dennis's new confidence before Dennis did. "You're distracted," Zion said, rotating to her corner. "I'm observing." "Observing what?" "How you give everything to everyone and keep nothing for yourself. How you probably grew up being told you'd never amount to anything and built an entire cathedral from that doubt. The way you teach," she said instead. "It's patient. Not everyone has that." Zion tilted his head. "Patience isn't a gift. It's a choice. Easier to make when you remember everyone's fighting something you can't see. Even, especially you." He guided her into a turn, and for one breathless moment, they moved together seamlessly. "The armor's heavy. I see you carrying it. Question is, who made you put it on?" An answer. Couldn't. But when class ended, she stayed to help Carmen stack chairs. The older woman raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "The lease renewal," Vivienne said quietly. "September." Carmen studied her. "Don't think you can swoop in with a checkbook and fix everything. That's not what this place needs." "What does it need?" "People who show up. Keep showing up. Let the rhythm teach them what money can't buy." Vivienne nodded slowly. For the first time in her life, she wanted to be someone who showed up. The annual Caldwell Foundation Gala arrived like clockwork. 500 guests, a string quartet, and enough diamonds to destabilize small economies. Vivienne stood in her custom Valentino gown, accepting compliments that felt like currency being exchanged. "Vivienne, darling." Caroline Westbrook, her mother's closest friend, descended with champagne breath proximity. "We simply must discuss the hospital wing naming. Your mother mentioned you'd chair the committee." "I'm not sure I'll have time." "Nonsense. What could possibly be more important?" "Salsa class," Vivienne thought, watching Zion teach children who couldn't afford lessons. Learning that rhythm could replace small talk. "Vivienne has been distracted lately," Cordelia appeared, silk-wrapped and sharp. "Some kind of exercise obsession. It'll pass." "Exercise is wonderful," Caroline cooed. "I have the most marvelous Pilates instructor. Swiss. Very expensive." "Not that kind of exercise." Preston materialized with a smirk. "She's been slumming in Little Havana, learning peasant dances." The circle of society women exchanged glances. Curious, judging, delighted by scandal. "How adventurous," Caroline said carefully. "Though one does wonder about the company's environment." "The company is fine," Vivienne heard herself say. "Better than fine. They're actual people with actual lives who don't measure worth by zip codes." Silence. Her mother's eyes could have frozen the champagne. "Excuse us." Cordelia gripped Vivienne's elbow, steering her toward a private alcove. "Have you lost your mind?" "I'm taking dance classes. That's all." "That's all?" "You just insulted our entire social circle. Women whose charitable giving keeps this city's arts programs alive. Charitable giving with naming rights attached. Tax deductions dressed as generosity." Cordelia's face went dangerously still. "Who has been filling your head with this class warfare rhetoric?" "Nobody. I've been filling my own head. Turns out there was room once I emptied out all the pretension." "Vivienne Claire Caldwell." Her mother's voice dropped to ice. "Your father built this family's name by understanding certain truths. There are people who lead and people who serve. Mixing those categories helps no one. Did it help Grandpa? He started as a construction worker. That was different. How?" But Cordelia simply turned away, returning to her guests with a hostess smile firmly in place. Vivienne stood alone in the alcove, heart pounding. Her phone buzzed. Zion had added her to the studio's group. Chat, community updates, student showcases, potluck announcements. Tonight's message, a video of Roberto dancing with his granddaughter at her quinceañera. The old man crying happy tears while the girl laughed. Caption, "This is why we do what we do." Vivienne watched the video 3 times. Then she walked back into the gala, found Caroline Westbrook and said, "I won't be chairing the committee, but I know a community center in Little Havana that could use the foundation's support. Real support, no naming rights, just helping." Caroline's face contorted. Vivienne didn't stay for the response. Some bridges were worth burning. The studio was empty, except for them. Sunday evening, Zion had finally agreed to a private lesson after Vivienne promised not to offer extra money. "Just teach me like you'd teach anyone," she'd said. "I'll pay the standard rate." Now they stood facing each other, music soft in the background, Miami dusk painting the windows amber. "Your posture's better," Zion observed. "You're starting to feel the music instead of counting it. I've been practicing YouTube videos at 2 a.m. like a normal person." He laughed, a real one, warm and unexpected. "There's hope for you yet, Caldwell." They moved through basic combinations, then intermediate. Vivienne stumbled less. Zion corrected more gently. Something had shifted between them, not romance, but respect, finding its footing. "Can I ask you something?" Vivienne said during a water break. "You're going to anyway. Why do you do this? You could teach at fancy studios, charge 10 times your rate, have clients who don't need scholarship." Zion leaned against the mirror, considering. "You really want to know?" "I really want to know. My mother cleaned houses in Coral Gables, your neighborhood, actually. Sometimes she'd bring me along when she couldn't find a sitter. I'd wait in service entrances while she scrubbed toilets in mansions." He paused. "One time, a kid my age saw me, son of the family. He asked his mom why I was there. She said, 'Don't worry about him, honey. He's nobody.'" Vivienne felt sick. "I was 7, Zion continued. "That stuck. Nobody. Like I wasn't even human enough to explain." He straightened. "So I built a place where everyone's somebody, where a kid from Liberty City gets the same attention as a trust fund baby, where nobody waits in service entrances." "I'm sorry." "For what?" "You weren't there. For being part of systems that make those moments. For not seeing it until someone showed me." Zion studied her for a long moment. "That's new. The seeing. I'm trying." "Trying's not nothing." He extended his hand. "Let's work on your turn." Anticipate. They danced in silence, Vivienne focusing on letting Zion instead of... It felt strange, surrendering. "Ever wonder what happened to him?" "I know what happened. He inherited the family business, sits on 3 charity boards, probably thinks he's one of the good ones." Zion spun her, caught her, held her gaze. Most people never examine their place in the machine. They just keep the gears turning and call it normal. "Me? You're here, aren't you? Sweating in a studio in Little Havana instead of whatever gala's happening to." He smiled slightly. "That's not nothing either." The music faded. They stood close, breath sinking, something unspoken building. "Same time next Sunday?" Zion asked. Vivienne nodded. It was starting to feel like home. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Caldwell Properties had acquired the block containing Fuego Nights. Development plans included luxury condos, a boutique hotel, and displacement of every current tenant. Vivienne found out from Harper's panicked text. "Did you know about this? Your family is evicting your dance place." She stormed into Preston's office without knocking. "The Little Havana acquisition," she demanded. "When was this decided?" Preston looked up from his laptop untroubled. "Months ago. Father finalized it before he passed. We're just executing the timeline. Those buildings have tenants, families, businesses that barely turn profit, families who can relocate. This is urban development, Vivienne. Progress. Progress for who? For shareholders, for the city's tax base, for everyone who matters." He closed his laptop. "I know you've been playing humanitarian at that little dance play. Adorable, really. But this is how real change happens. Old makes way for new. Those people's lives aren't old things to demolish." Preston stood, patience thinning. "You own 15% of this company. Vote against it at the board meeting you want. You'll lose, but at least you'll have made a little stand." Vivienne drove to the studio in a daze. Zion was teaching an afternoon children's class. A dozen kids from the neighborhood learning basic steps while their parents watched through the window. Carmen met her at the door, face grave. "You heard." "I just found out. I swear I didn't know." "Your family's name is on the letterhead. My family does a lot of things I don't control." Zion emerged as parents collected their children, his expression unreadable when he saw Vivienne. "We should talk," she said. They sat in his cramped office, eviction notices and community protest flyers covering his desk. 3 months. That's all the notice tenants received. I didn't know, Vivienne repeated. The acquisition happened before I started coming here. Would it have mattered if you knew? The question hit bone. Before? Probably not. I didn't think about where buildings came from. Just saw them as numbers on spreadsheets. She met his eyes. Now, I can't unsee the people. Seeing isn't enough. Zion's voice was tired, but not cruel. This neighborhood has been getting developed my whole life. Different company names, same outcome. Generations of community, erased for luxury units that sit empty half the year. What if I fought it? How? You said yourself you don't control the board. I have resources, lawyers, media contacts. Vivienne's mind raced. There must be historical preservation angle, community impact requirements, something. And your family? They'll be furious. You'd risk that? For a building you've been visiting 8 weeks? Vivienne thought about Roberto and Magdalena, who'd met their grandchildren's spouses in this studio. About Destiny, who'd found confidence through dance. About Carmen's spreadsheets and Zion's empty salary line. It's not about she said quietly. It's about who I want to look in the mirror. Zion leaned back, something shifting in his posture. Then let's talk strategy, because if you're really in this, you need to understand. This fight gets ugly. Your people play dirtier. I'm starting to figure that out. The Caldwell Properties boardroom had never felt smaller. Vivienne sat at the mahogany table, where her grandfather had made his first million, and her father had made his last. Surrounded by faces she'd known since childhood, all carefully neutral. Cordelia presided at the head, Preston at her right. 8 other board members formed a wall of conservative suits and expectations. We're here to discuss the Little Havana development, Cordelia began. Vivienne has requested time to present alternative perspectives. Vivienne stood, hands steadier than her heart. I've prepared a proposal. Community integrated development. We keep the existing structures, renovate instead of demolish. Ground floor commercial stays affordable. We build around the neighborhood instead of erasing it. The profit margins, Preston started, are smaller but sustainable. I've run the numbers with independent consultants. We'd still see returns, just not the astronomical ones that require displacing 300. Silence. Board members exchanged glances. This is sentimental nonsense, Cordelia said. Your father understood that progress requires sacrifice. Sacrifice from who? Not us. Never us. Vivienne pulled up slides on the screen. These are the businesses we'd displace. Roberto's barbershop, 40 years in the same location. Carmen's bakery, the community center where kids get free tutoring. And yes, a dance studio that gives more to its neighborhood than we've ever given. One studio does not outweigh shareholder value, Preston's. Then our values are worthless. The room inhaled sharply. Vivienne pressed on. I'm calling a formal vote. On record. I want every board member to state, publicly, whether they choose profit. Let the record show exactly who we are. You'd expose this family to public scrutiny? Cordelia's voice could freeze flames. I'd expose this family to accountability, something we've avoided long enough. The vote proceeded, 6-4 against Vivienne's proposal, but closer than anyone expected. 2 longtime allies of her father had abstained, citing need for further review. Afterward, Preston cornered her in the hallway. You just declared war on your own blood. I declared war on what our blood has been doing in the dark. This isn't over. No, Vivienne, it isn't. She drove to Little Havana as the sun set, finding Zion teaching a free community class in the parking lot. Speakers on a folding table, neighbors dancing in the golden light. He saw her approach, paused mid-instruction. Well, we lost the vote, but I rattled some cages. Bought time for an appeal. She joined him by the speakers. I also started a legal fund. Anonymous donor. Enough for a real fight. Zion studied her. Anonymous? I don't want credit. I want change. Something broke open in his expression. Not quite trust, but its first tentative growth. There's a community meeting tomorrow, he said. Planning our response. You should come. As what? As someone who showed up. That's all anyone ever needs to be. Hello, the shade of love, family. So happy you're here. Before we jump into the next part of the story, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments. Also, how's the story been so far? We love reading your thoughts. Yes, every single comment, and it really keeps us motivated. Let's aim for 50 comments on this video. Think we can hit it? Your support means the world, so don't forget to comment, share, and keep the energy flowing. The Miami Herald interview wasn't something Vivienne had planned, but when the reporter reached out, a woman named Jasmine Torres, who'd been covering gentrification for years, Vivienne said yes before her better judgment could intervene. They met at a cafe in Wynwood, cameras and recorders between them. "You're the first Caldwell to speak publicly against family development projects," Jasmine said. "Your mother released a statement calling your actions a personal matter being handled privately. Care to respond?" "My mother handles everything privately. That's the problem." Vivienne straightened. "Caldwell Properties has displaced over 2,000 families in the past decade. We call it development. The people losing their homes call it destruction." Strong words from an heiress. Being born into something doesn't mean accepting it. "I spent 26 years benefiting from systems I never questioned. Now I'm questioned." The article ran 3 days later. The headline, "Caldwell Heiress Breaks Ranks. My Family Builds on the Backs of Communities We Erase." Her phone exploded. Society friends unfollowed her en masse. Her mother's lawyer sent a formal letter about protecting family reputation. Preston called her a traitor in a voicemail she saved for evidence. But other messages came too. Community organizers reaching out, journalists wanting follow-ups, a coalition of tenant rights groups requesting meetings, and a text from Zion. "Saw the article. Took guts. Community meeting tonight if you're still in." She arrived at the community center to find 50 people packed into a room designed for 20. Faces of all ages, all backgrounds, united by the threat of losing their homes. Zion introduced her simply. "This is Vivienne. She's been taking dance classes and fighting her own family. She's got resources we don't. Let's hear what she's thinking." Vivienne stood before people who had every reason to distrust her. "I can't undo what my family has done," she began, "but I can redirect resources, legal team, media attention, money for appeals and organizing." She paused. "I'm not here to lead. I'm here to follow your lead and provide what you need." An elderly woman in the front row spoke up. "Why should we trust you?" "Fair question. The only one that mattered." "You shouldn't," Vivienne admitted. "Trust is earned. I haven't earned it yet, but I'm asking for the chance to try." Silence. Then Roberto, her dance class friend, stood up. "I've seen this girl go from not knowing a basic step to helping Carmen stack chairs. She sweats like everyone else now." He shrugged. "Maybe that's not trust, but it's something." Scattered nods. The meeting continued. Strategy, timelines, assignments. Afterward, Carmen caught Vivienne's arm. "You just burned down your whole world." "I burned down a world that needed burning." Vivienne looked around at faces now tentatively including her. "Maybe I can help build something better from the ashes." 6 months later, Vivienne stood in the newly renovated Fuego Night studio. Same location, expanded space, community ownership structure she'd helped finance through a foundation completely separate from Caldwell Properties. The legal battle wasn't over. Appeals wound through courts while her family's lawyers sought every delay. But the demolition had been paused indefinitely. The neighborhood still stood. Roberto and Magdalena were teaching a couples class in the corner. The old man's arthritis didn't stop his hips. Dennis had graduated to intermediate and was now dating the barista from 2 blocks over. Destiny was applying to performing arts high schools with recommendation letters from Zion. "You're staring again," Zion said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of café con leche. "Observing," she corrected, accepting the cup. "Still my specialty." "Your specialty is showing up. Observation's just the bonus." They'd never defined what existed between them. Some connections didn't need labels. They just needed tending. Sunday lessons had evolved into shared meals, long conversations, the slow intimacy of people learning each other's rhythms. "My mother sent another letter," Vivienne said, "threatening to remove me from the trust entirely. And and I told her to do whatever brings her peace. Money I didn't earn shouldn't determine who I become." Zion smiled. That real one she'd learned to recognize. The billionaire heiress who stopped caring about billions. Who would have thought? Not me. Definitely not me. The evening class was starting. A mix of new students and regulars, the community that had become her unexpected family. Vivienne had traded galas for potlucks, designer gowns for leggings that could handle actual movement. She still had resources, still wielded them, but differently now. Legal funds for tenants facing eviction across the city, scholarships for kids who danced the way Zion had once danced, media connections leveraged for community voices instead of corporate spin. "You know what I realized?" she said as the music started. "Tell me. That night you asked me to dance. You weren't testing whether I had rhythm. You were testing whether I could follow, whether I could trust someone else to lead. Did you pass?" Eventually, she set down her cup, extended her hand. "One more lesson, instructor." Zion took her hand, pulling her close. They moved together through the steps that had once felt impossible, her body finally understanding what he'd tried to teach from the start. Dance is the conversation your soul wants to have. Vivienne had spent her whole life talking, networking, negotiating. But here, in this studio that smelled of sweat and possibility, she'd finally learned to listen. The music swelled. Zion spun her, caught her, held her gaze with something that looked like the beginning of everything. "Not bad, Caldwell," he murmured. "I learned from the best." Outside, little Havana pulsed with its stubborn, beautiful life, unchanged, unbroken, still dancing. The end.